Frank Sinatra did not change his mind easily. This was well known. This was one of the defining qualities of the man. He decided things. He held to what he decided. The people around him adjusted to his decisions, not the other way around. His opinions about music, about performers, about who belonged in Las Vegas and who did not, these were not casual opinions. They were verdicts. So when Frank Sinatra changed his opinion about Tom Jones, it was not a small event. The question is, what happened in that room? What did he hear that night that moved a verdict? In 1967, Tom Jones was 31 years old. He had been a star in Britain for 2 years. He had grown up in Pontypridd, a small coal mining town in South Wales, in a terraced house with thin walls, and a family who knew what money meant when there was not enough of it. He had started singing in the working men's clubs of South Wales when he was a teenager. Those clubs were not gentle audiences. They were rooms full of people who had finished hard work and who wanted something real, not something polished. Tom Jones had learned in those rooms what it meant to hold an audience that was not yet on your side. He had learned it the hard way, by failing in front of people and understanding from the failure what was missing, and then going back and finding it. By the time he arrived in Las Vegas, he had been finding it for 15 years. But Frank Sinatra's Las Vegas was a specific world. It was not the Las Vegas of the tourist or the gambler. It was the Las Vegas of the professional, the people who lived inside the machine and who understood how it worked. Sinatra had been at the center of this world since the 1950s. He had performed at the Sands. He had defined what a Las Vegas engagement could be. His personal authority in that world was not simply the authority of a popular performer. It was the authority of the person who had built the room's standards, and who therefore had the standing to apply them. Sinatra had heard Tom Jones. He had heard the records. His reaction was reportedly limited. The voice was powerful, but powerful was not the same as belonging. Power without the right quality of restraint was just loudness. Sinatra had seen many loud voices come through Las Vegas. They had not lasted. This was the verdict. It was not unkind. It was simply the judgment of a man who had been in the business for 30 years. You did not arrive in that hierarchy because the charts said you should be there. You arrived because the people already inside it decided you belonged. Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. This circle was not open by default. It had to be entered. And it was entered not through records or television appearances, but through the rooms, through what you did when the people inside the circle were watching. Tom Jones knew this. He had been watching it from the outside for 2 years. He had been building the case, show by show, that he belonged in those rooms. He had been building it in the only way it could be built, by performing, by bringing to each showroom the full weight of what the voice could do, and waiting for the rooms to tell the right people what they had heard. He did not say anything immediately. Sinatra rarely said anything immediately. He processed what he heard. Then he formed the revised opinion. Then, eventually, he said it. What he said, and this is the account that traveled through the Las Vegas world in the months that followed, was this: that Tom Jones had something in his voice that Sinatra had not expected to be there. That it was not simply power, it was something behind the power. Something that the power was in service of, and that this was, in Sinatra's specific judgment, the difference between a voice that was impressive and a voice that would last. This was not a small verdict to revise. Sinatra had built his understanding of what lasted in popular music on decades of careful, accurate observation. His revisions were rare. When they came, they were not casual. The word moved through Las Vegas the way things move through Las Vegas, person to person, room to room. In the hours after the shows, when the performers and the people around them gathered and talked, Frank Sinatra had changed his mind about Tom Jones. This meant something. In that specific world, in that specific moment, this meant a great deal. Tom Jones heard about it. He did not say much about it publicly at the time. He was not the kind of person who used other people's opinions of him as material. He was the kind of person who stored them in a private place and let them do their work quietly. The work they did was real. The specific thing that Sinatra's revised verdict gave Tom Jones was not permission. He did not need permission. It was confirmation. It was the confirmation that the thing he had been carrying from Pontypridd to the working men's clubs, to London, to America, to Las Vegas, the thing that the voice was in service of, was visible to the people with the sharpest eyes. That was not nothing. That was, in fact, everything. He continued performing. He continued filling the showrooms. But the people who knew him well said that something settled in him during those months. Something that had been in the process of becoming certain became certain. There is a photograph from that period. It does not have the quality of a posed photograph. It has the quality of a photograph taken by someone who happened to be in the room and who understood that what was in front of them was worth preserving. The two men are not performing for the camera. They are in the room. They are in the specific state of two people who have arrived at a mutual understanding and are now simply inhabiting it. The photograph matters because of what it shows and also because of what it does not show. It does not show deference. Tom Jones does not have the posture of someone who is aware that they are in the presence of authority and is adjusting accordingly. He stands as a person who belongs in the room stands. He is not performing belonging. He is belonging. This is the payoff of Sinatra's revised verdict. Not the words Sinatra used to describe what he heard, the posture of the man Sinatra had revised his opinion about. Tom Jones heard about the verdict. He did not respond to it publicly. He was not the kind of person who responded to things publicly. He was the kind of person who went on stage and let the performance respond. And then, one night in Las Vegas, the year is not certain, the specific venue is not certain, but the account is consistent. Frank Sinatra came to see Tom Jones perform. He did not come as a gesture. He did not come to be seen coming. He came because someone whose opinion he trusted had told him something about what happened in a Tom Jones showroom that Sinatra had not expected to hear. He came to see if it was true. Tom Jones that night performed the way he performed when everything was working. He did not know Sinatra was in the room. This matters. A performer who knows the most important person in their professional world is watching performs differently than a performer who does not know. The knowledge changes the calculation. It introduces a second audience alongside the general audience. Tom Jones did not have that second audience. He had only the room. And the room, that night, received everything he had to give. The show was built the way his shows were built. The voice started where it always started and moved through the set at the pace the music required. Tom Jones had learned this pacing in the clubs. He had learned that the room's readiness mattered more than the performer's eagerness. You had to let the room arrive at the moment with you. If you arrived before the room, the moment was yours alone. If you arrived together, The moment was shared. Shared moments were what he was after. That was what the voice was for. Sinatra sat at the back, private booth, the position of a man who was there to observe, not to be observed. The performance went on, song after song, the voice building through the set, starting large, finding somewhere larger. And at some point in that evening, Frank Sinatra sat back in his booth. The people near him noticed. This is the detail they describe consistently. Not something Sinatra said, what he did with his body. The specific movement of a man who has just heard something that has revised his position. He had not come expecting revision. He had come expecting confirmation of the verdict he had already delivered. The verdict that a powerful voice was not the same as a lasting voice. That the two were different categories. That Tom Jones had one, but not the other. He had come, in short, to be confirmed right. And instead, sitting in the dark at the back of the room, he was being revised. The voice was doing what it did when it was operating at the level that the working men's clubs of Pontypridd had originally built it for. It was not performing for Sinatra. It did not know about Sinatra. It was performing for the room, and the room included Sinatra, who was receiving it the way the room was receiving it, completely, without the buffer that the intellect provides when the intellect is still in control. Sinatra was at the center of the most important musical world of that era. His opinion shaped the world around him, and his revised opinion about Tom Jones became part of how the Las Vegas world understood Tom Jones. What Frank Sinatra had heard in the end was what Ella Fitzgerald had heard, what Elvis Presley had heard, what the audiences had heard imprecisely, without the vocabulary to name it precisely. Something behind the power, something that the power was in service of. Tom Jones had been trying to say it for his whole career. The voice kept saying it for him. And one by one, the people with the most accurate ears in the business had sat down in front of it and listened and revised their positions. Frank Sinatra was one of those people. His revision took an evening. But the evening was not arbitrary. It was the result of 30 years of listening carefully to voices and knowing accurately what he was hearing. When Sinatra heard the thing behind the power, he named it for himself precisely, without sentimentality, without the softening that comes from wanting something to be true. He heard it because it was there. He revised his position because the evidence required the revision. And then he held to the revision the way he held to everything, without wavering, without revisiting. His verdict from that evening forward was that Tom Jones had a voice that would last. It did last. It is lasting still. The voice that Sinatra had initially placed in the category of impressive but not lasting has now been performing for 6 decades. The showrooms Tom Jones filled in Las Vegas in the 1960s and 1970s were followed by arenas in the 1980s and 1990s and festivals in the 2000s and 2010s. The voice moved through all of it. It did not diminish. It deepened. It acquired the specific quality that voices acquire when they have been used honestly for a very long time. The quality of something that has been tested and is not broken, and has therefore become something more reliable than it was when it was only new. And somewhere in that Las Vegas archive, in the booths, in the showrooms, in the late-night rooms where the music world talked about itself, there is the echo of one man sitting back in his chair and saying that he had heard something he had not expected to be there. That was enough. In that world, at that time, that was entirely enough. Frank Sinatra did not change his mind easily, but when he did, he meant it. And he meant it about Tom Jones.